It has been a great season on Death by Bungie, probably the best season of our 10 seasons together hunting with this crossbow. This episode of Death by Bungie is special to me because it's going to feature some content of me hunting with my daughter Genevieve during our Pennsylvania crossbow season, or as I like to call it, the 37 Days of Awesome. If you haven't done so already, go to deathbybungie.com and sign up for our email list on there so that you can be kept up to date on all things Bungie. It's free and you can unsubscribe at any time. On this episode of Death by Bungie, we're going to find out if the 100-year-old apple tree has any more hunts left in it. Does it have any more deer to give me? If you are a friend of Bungie, you are aware that every other year I hunt under the 100-year-old apple tree. It produces apples every other year. This is going to be no exception. However, that tree has struggled in recent years, and we're going to see if it does have at least one more hunt left in it. This is an apple tree that was planted by my great-grandfather like 100 years ago, cultivated by my grandfather and his brothers when they were on the property, and now I am fortunate enough to enjoy that apple tree. It was one of many trees in an orchard down in that area. It is the only survivor, the only remaining tree. Man, the lengths that I go to put together videos for you people. I went out in my work clothes over lunch and shot this drone footage just so I would have some midday drone footage to share with you about this apple tree and about this area. Certainly not complaining. I love this tree and I love sharing this footage with you. I love sharing these stories with you, and I so much appreciate you joining me here on this YouTube channel. I am fortunate enough to hunt with my daughter Genevieve. Now, she's not big on hunting, but she does enjoy getting out in the outdoors. She does like to be part of these adventures just the same. She just doesn't necessarily want to do the hunting herself. She did attend the recent meet and greet, and meet was, of course, spelled M-E-A-T. That is our meet and greet that we had where we had a boar hunt here several months ago, late in August of 2019. She had a great time with that, and I'm hoping that she will have a great time hunting with me during Pennsylvania's crossbow season. She helped me set this all up ahead of time. We set up the blind, we tested the camera angles because she's going to be working the camera on this hunt, and we got all set up with that so that she would be able to film that footage in order to get those cameras working. You don't want to sort of learn that on the job, so to speak. These cameras can be kind of complicated, and you want to make sure that it goes nice and smooth when you finally get out there. When we finally get set up on opening day, bright and early, we make our way down to that hunting blind. We're happy because we get set up and we haven't spooked any deer in the process of getting in there. We get set up in the blind, and I can tell that there aren't going to be too many opportunities under this apple tree. Almost all of the leaves have fallen off of this tree. Almost all of the apples are gone. Normally, in a healthier year, this apple tree still has all of its leaves. Maybe some of them have turned color. All the apples remain, or many of them remain, and those apples are fresh and green, not yellow and rotting and red. That's usually the sign that those apples are decaying, at least in my experience. Many years in the past, I've hunted this thing all through October, all the way up to the beginning of November. That is not going to be the case this year. The other problem that Genevieve and I and Bungie face on this hunt is the fact that the neighbors grew some corn in their field this year, only hundreds of yards away from that apple tree. So they've got another food source, the deer do, in this area. Whether that's more attractive to them than the occasional apple, I don't know. There's only one way to find out. Now on this hunt, I'm not necessarily looking for a big buck. I'm looking for more venison for the freezer at this point in the season. Happy to shoot whatever comes in, whatever gives us a good look. We finally do get some deer activity, and I am so fortunate that Genevieve was with me because she points out that it was a button buck. I could not tell by looking through the scope and I couldn't tell right offhand by looking at the deer that this was a button buck. I try not to shoot button bucks. I have in the past, and there's even videos of me shooting button bucks here on the YouTube channel, but right now I do try to avoid shooting button bucks if at all possible. Happy to shoot a doe, however. We did see does up on the hill. Those deer were making their way down along the hill between our location and where the corn was, where the neighbor's cornfield is. They just wouldn't come down the hill to this apple tree. As the first round of morning activity wanes, Genevieve and I sort of debate whether we're going to sit the entire day or pack up now and leave, as the deer now are probably going to move to their midday bed where they will ruminate and chew their cuds, so to speak. So you have a little bit of a window now. Those deer have eaten for the morning. We've got probably 4 or 5 hours before they make their way back to either eat at this apple tree or stay where they're at and eat where they're at, whatever. But if we're going to see deer, it's probably a few more hours away. We do take a brief walk in another part of the woods. We go down and check our cameras, check a little mock scrape that we have out by a different part of the property, and then we come back and sit for the afternoon. We do see that button buck come back, and interestingly enough, he comes back, and what's he doing? He's chewing his cud. You can tell that he's ruminating right there in front of us. At one point, I think this button buck is on to us. He comes awful close, within 15 yards of the blind, looking in there, but never snorts, never blows out of there or anything like that, but is nonetheless very concerned. Maybe there was some light behind us coming through one of the zippers and I had moved my head or something like that to where he had seen that. But he's definitely on to that blind, but nevertheless, still comes back later on in the evening. This is a great experience to share with Genevieve and talk about. It would have been great if we had an opportunity to shoot something. I'm willing to sit the entire day. I've exercised my tree stand muscles, so to speak, an awful lot so far this season. I feel really comfortable sitting. But Genevieve, on the other hand, she's a little bit worn out. One thing you want to do with kids is don't push them too far. I want her to enjoy and appreciate the time that she spends with me hunting. I don't want to make it a job or a task. I'm not going to force her to do it. So we pack up our gear and we call it quits for that day. I'm still looking to fill the freezer, however, at this point in the season, early October, early in the 37 days of awesome here in Pennsylvania, early in the Pennsylvania crossbow season. I am happy to shoot a doe at this point, and we do return while Genevieve's at school, so it'll be just me and Bungie on this hunt. And the first thing I notice is we're almost out of apples. Recent rains have knocked almost all of the apples off of that tree. If Bungie and I are going to get it done in this location, it needs to be done now. An hour or so before sunset, I have a fawn come in. I look at it closely. It does not appear to be the same button buck that we had seen time and time again. Instead, it is just a legitimate doe fawn making her way through. She stops, gives me a perfect broadside shot, a perfect 25-yard shot. And this is how we set up that hunting location with a blind. 25 yards on the nose from where those deer would most likely be. It might get a 30-yard shot if the deer is back by that apple tree. Might get a 20-yard shot if the deer was closer. But for the most part, we are looking at that 25-yard shot here. I get the sense that this deer is just moving through. She doesn't even stop and smell around looking for apples. I think that the deer at this point are starting to realize those apples are just few and far between. Probably these deer are heading across the property and using this as a path to make their way up to that cornfield. 15 minutes later, after this little fawn makes her way out of there, I hear a doe grunting off in the distance, right off to my left. Bungie and I wait patiently, and she makes her way right into the middle of the clearing, stops right where the fawn stopped at 25 yards, gives me a perfect quartering away broadside shot. Bungie and I, we're gonna take that shot. Now this deer takes off with my arrow, but I know I made a pretty good shot on this deer. It's going to be a double lung shot, I'm pretty confident. And I watch her go off and I listen, and I think that I hear that deer crash. This shot isn't so high that it would be a spine shot or anything like that. I certainly did not hit the shoulder blade on this shot. I feel really good about the shot and its location. It's getting dark and I'm right under the apple tree. There's no apples on the ground. This tree is done. There's probably half a dozen apples left on it, and I don't see any on here. That explains why the deer were not in and out of here non-stop. Even on the camera, the pictures on the camera are showing that they aren't in here an awful lot. So I'll be looking for a Luminoc, but I'm not holding out hope for seeing that anytime soon either. I'm gonna get to walking here. We make our way cautiously through the woods, trying to follow any sign of blood, and I do find the arrow about 20 yards from the point of impact. Apparently she carried that arrow 20 yards or so and it fell out. Didn't really look like that arrow had passed all the way through the deer. The fletchings aren't soaked in blood, but there is plenty of blood on this arrow, and that's a good thing. Got lucky. I don't know if this is gonna work or not. Maybe it's working. It actually looks like it's tracking my face. This camera's something else. This is one big doe. This is a monster. I am so fortunate here. Bungie, you did a great job. I'm very happy with this. She went maybe 60 yards or so. Yes, I am wearing shorts. This is the first deer I've ever shot in shorts. The deer's not wearing shorts, I'm wearing shorts. Really nice day, sitting in that blind. It was warm enough that I could sit in here with shorts on. I had the black shirt on here. I had this inside out, of course. I don't want the Death by Bungie logo scaring the deer away or anything like that. So I had this inside out, and I have put it back right side out to show it off, show off this vintage Death by Bungie logo here over this really nice collection of mountain beef. Okay, it's pretty gory, but that's what Death by Bungie looks like. Oh, that broadhead definitely opened. Look at that. Holy cow, the broadhead opened. I mean, it's... You seeing this? Look at this. Like, it's a 4-inch hole. Just to put it in perspective here, this is the big old doe. Massive entrance wound. I don't know why I didn't get a pass through. Maybe it's just because she's so big. But this is a nice big doe. And I am proud to shoot this doe. If this is the last deer that I shoot under the 100-year-old apple tree, I am proud and thankful if this is that deer. I got nothing else to say. I got a lot of work ahead of me. And looking over this deer, I think the problem with penetration was just so happened that the broadhead made contact with the deer horizontally, and in doing so had to cut through 3 ribs. That just didn't leave enough energy for it to go out the other side. But it certainly got the job done. A 60-yard tracking job, that's good enough for me and Bungie. Bungie here is an older, slower crossbow, shooting 280 feet per second. Maybe penetration is a conversation I should be having down the road. We shall see. The only way for you to make sure that you are on top of all of the conversations here on Death by Bungie is to subscribe, but also go to deathbybungie.com and sign up for our free email newsletter that will keep you up to date on all things Bungie. It's free, and you can unsubscribe at any time. Thank you for watching this episode of Death by Bungie. Until next time, all hail Bungie!
The second state is #1 in my book.
Okay, we're recording up there, recording down here. Looks good, looks good. There's your 5 taps for Pennsylvania Doe #1 Premier. This is an apple tree that was planted by my great-grand... The other thing that we're worried about with this hunt is not just whether the apple tree... Okay, let's go talk about that now. Forget that. We're not going back to the other one. Okay. They ended up having to cut through 3 ribs just on the entrance. Oh, I covered up my microphone here. Hope that didn't... Yeah. Let's see if we can get her up on our side here to really see the size of this girl here. Oh, I don't know if that'll work. Didn't turn the screen around. That's really good. Self-filming. Oh, where's Genevieve when you need her? I don't know if this is going to work.